Arizona. Mark Brnovich is here. A lot to talk about with you, sir. Great to have you back.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. What do you make of this decision by the Supreme Court?
Which one? I mean, there's so many, but specifically regarding immigration.
Yeah.
Look, you and I have discussed this before, is that the Biden administration has completely abandoned the rule of law when it comes to our southern border. And we, the Republican attorney generals, including myself, have been taking the lead on trying to make sure that every single policy or statute that's in place remains in place. And from the very beginning, the Biden administration has been trying to do everything they can to not only basically eradicate ICE, but also basically eradicate or destroy our whole southern border. And so the Remain in Mexico policy, as you said, was just one of those tools in the toolbox, but the Biden administration rescinded it. And I would argue that as a result of these policies, this is the continuation of the decriminalization and the incentivization of illegal immigration, and that's why we continue to see record numbers of people. And when these kind of policies get rescinded or either rescinded and the court won't hold the Biden administration accountable, it will just encourage more people to come here, and it is sending up like a giant bat signal to folks, telling them that there's no consequences for breaking the law and coming into the country illegally.
Sure. I got to admit, just as a layman here, not a lawyer, I have mixed feelings about this decision today because I do think that the president of the United States should be able to overturn the executive practices of the last president. That was a privilege that Donald Trump was rarely afforded. He tried to get rid of DACA, for instance, and the courts got in the way of that. Again, Obama can just invent it out of whole cloth, but Trump can't get rid of it. But meanwhile, on this one, obviously the correct thing to do is to enforce the border, and I'm looking for any way that could possibly be done. As a legal matter, I mean, can't the administration be sued for just gross negligence to the law, for just ignoring our immigration laws and allowing foreign nationals to pour across that border?
Well, first, on your first point, look, I argued that case at the United States Supreme Court early this year on the public charge rule that the Biden administration rescinded. And one of the questions I got asked by the justices is that, hey, when there's a change in administration, can they change policies? And the answer to that is yes. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And as you alluded to, if Republican presidents have to go through, the process of how they rescind or implement policies, then the Democratic presidents should have to do the same thing. And so we're just trying to make sure that there's consistency. But not only that, because of all the havoc and all the chaos that has been wrought upon us, we're trying to do everything we can. And that's why we sued over Title 42, why we sued over, the interim and then permanent guidance where they're releasing people into our country, even though they have deportation orders. The second part of your question is the Supreme Court and other courts have held when it comes to border security. This is where the president, federal government's at kind of the apex of their power, border security, national security. So, I have issued a legal opinion. I'm the only AG in the country, only first time it's ever been done, basically saying that what the Biden administration is doing is has created a invasion under Article 4 of our Constitution. And I think that empowers the states to do certain things. Now, that's never been challenged, and the extent of that's never been litigated. But at a minimum, right now, shame on all the people in D.C., in Congress, in the Senate, and their staff that listens to this, that have done absolutely nothing to hold the Biden administration accountable.
Well,
and whether that's voting, I've said that when I'm in the Senate, I will never vote on another nominee until the border is secure, and whether that's for the judiciary or any policy or cabinet position. But also, what about cutting off funding? What about beginning impeachment proceedings and holding administration officials accountable, like Secretary Mayorkas, who refuses to do his job?
No, those are all good points, but you mentioned that you have this legal opinion that your state, Arizona, is being invaded, and therefore that affords you legal recourse so that you can actually do something about it. It hasn't been challenged. I would presume the reason it hasn't been challenged is because nobody's acted on your legal advice. Doug Ducey, the governor of your state, has not meaningfully tried to repel the invasion into Arizona. Greg Abbott is, it seems like he's doing some things about trespassing on the border, and he claims he's negotiating with some of the Mexican governors to try and bring down illegal immigration. That's not actually happening. Our border there's more people pouring across it than ever. It seems to me that the border governors are just not actually acting on your legal advice.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of times folks talk about these issues, but this is truly a national security issue. And we know that obviously you and I have talked about the record amount of fentanyl coming into this country, and even methamphetamine. Just last month, more than 1,000 pounds were seized, and we know that much more than that's getting across. And 1,000 pounds of fentanyl is enough to kill the entire population of Arizona, conceivably. I mean, so we're talking about a record amount of drugs coming in, record amount of people. Last month, 240,000 people were apprehended. That's just the apprehensions, not the gotaways. That's like the entire population of Arlington, Virginia. So this is having a impact on all of us. Every state's a border state now because people are dying. There's people on terror watch lists being apprehended. And we know that, when you have millions of people coming over, like the entire populations of states, literally in 1 year, that's having a huge fiscal impact. So, indeed, I'm a lawyer, I'm a prosecutor, I want to be in the Senate, but I'm not a policymaker right now. I use the tools in my toolbox, but the policymakers, the executives, need to do what they have to do. And it's not fair that Arizona and Texas would have to spend money, for example, mobilizing our National Guard, because it is the federal government's job. But at some point, I think we need, even the governors need to say, we are sending the National Guard, and then you send the bill to Joe Biden, or you actually say, we're going to start gang members, all these other people, the cartel that are smuggling people, we will arrest them and repatriate them and force the Biden administration to either sue you or try to take legal action against the state.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich, earlier this week, tragedy in Texas as more than 50 illegal immigrants were being human smuggled into the United States. They died in a tractor trailer in unbelievable heat, cooked to death, bodies strewn along the highway. And of course, there was a lot of outrage about this, including from the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who pointed the finger at the Biden administration for his open border policies. Here's Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, responding to that. Take a listen.
I think the numbers are now at 50 dead. Mm-hmm. In the back of a truck. People who, seems by what we know so far, were trying to find a better life, right? Died a horrible death. And I think that you're raising the point about how the governor of that state responded really highlights part of the problem. Because his response, where there are 50 dead bodies in his state, is to go straight to politics instead of dealing with the realities of the issue.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich, how do you see it?
Well, just hearing that clip, Vince, I can't think to help to myself that the border crisis has the notorious distinction of proving that Kamala Harris's lack of integrity is surpassed even by her ineptitude. And, shame on the vice president. She was a state AG at one time. The Biden administration, whether it's Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they refuse to come to the border and see firsthand the destruction that they are causing, not only Arizona, Texas, and other border states, but the entire United States, because we are being overrun, not just by the cartels and the migrants, but by the leftist radicals who have apparently seized control of the White House and the vice president. And I just sit there, I'm sitting here saying to myself that shame on the vice president, because they express all this sympathy for other parts of the world, including Ukraine, which is a terrible tragedy. But my goodness, what are we doing? We worry about Ukraine's border and Ukraine, being energy dependent. What about the United States and our energy independence and our secure borders? And people are literally dying and will die in the future because of the policy of the Biden administration that is not humane. It is insane.
Attorney General Mark Brnovich, again, of the state of Arizona. I want to ask you about a case called Brnovich v. Isaacson. You tweeted the breaking news today that the Supreme Court vacated the injunction. If you could put this into terms that I would understand, if you don't mind, what is Arizona's ban on discriminatory abortions that you say is now in effect, and what did the Supreme Court do today?
For more than a decade, Arizona has prohibited abortion providers from performing an abortion knowing that the procedure is going to be based on sex or race. So recently, the Arizona legislature expanded that to basically say that any sort of discriminatory abortions based on genetic abnormalities such as Down syndrome are illegal. So left-wing groups sued me because I was the only AG or the only prosecutor in the state willing to stand up to the left-wing groups and, Planned Parenthood and those folks. So they sued me. That's why the case is named after me. And the Supreme Court, literally, in today's, slew of opinions they issued, they basically lifted the injunction that was in place. So that means the law is in effect. We have arguments again on it next week. So today's SCOTUS decision was a victory for Arizona. I stood up to the lefties and Planned Parenthood, and I'm going to continue to fight to protect innocent life, because at the end of the day, every society ultimately gets judged by how it treats the most or the least vulnerable. And that's why I'm in court trying to protect all of our rights, try to secure our border, and try to protect the unborn.
So another massive win for life out of the United States Supreme Court this week. A lot of people will be giving attention naturally to the Dobbs case, but this is a big one. If just saying that no, you discriminate against a baby because of the circumstances of their birth. How their life is going to be going forward. No abortions for that reason.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to fight to uphold the rule of law, to protect the innocent, and and I'm sure left-wing groups are going to try to undermine or demonize anybody that's standing in their far-left neo-Marxist ideology. But that's what we're doing. That's whether it's suing the president of the United States, being at the Supreme Court trying to uphold the protect the unborn. That's where I'm at, and that's where our office has been.
When is, by the way, remind me, when is your primary election day for Senate?
Not soon enough. It is August 2nd is the primary date, but early, mail-in voting starts, in July. So, look, I'm being outspent, but look, I'm an Arizonan. Mark Kelly votes with Chuck Schumer 97% of the time, but I always remind folks he votes with Bernie Sanders 9 out of 10 times, and not even Bernie's wife agrees with him that much. So we need a senator with Arizona values. I'm a middle-class, first-generation American public school kid. I still live in the same neighborhood I grew up in, and we need someone that's going to stand up to Joe Biden and the leftists, and that's what I've done my entire career.
Yeah, some big names in that race, including our guest, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Best of luck to you, sir. Thank you so much, as always.
Thanks, Vince, for having me on.
All right.
Peace.
Peace to you, sir. All right.